The lecture hall was quiet, the air thick with anticipation as Professor Lee stood in front of his class, his gaze sweeping across the eager faces of the students. It was the start of a new semester, and everyone was waiting for the first words that would set the tone for the weeks to come. Instead of diving straight into the syllabus, Professor Lee surprised them with a question, one that seemed to hang in the air like a challenge. What do you think is the most important skill you will learn during your time at university? A few students glanced at each other, unsure of how to respond. One hand tentatively rose from the front row, and a confident voice offered, critical thinking. Professor Lee nodded thoughtfully, pacing slowly as he continued, yes, critical thinking is essential. But let me ask you this, can critical thinking alone guide you through life? Can it help you navigate the emotional complexities of relationships, the stress of modern life, or the deep questions of meaning and purpose? The room was silent now, the students captivated. Another student, sitting near the back, raised their hand. I suppose not. But we're here to learn about our field, to become experts, aren't we? Professor Lee smiled, walking to the center of the room. Yes, you will learn many things about your chosen fields, and I will teach you how to become experts. But I'm here to tell you that expertise alone isn't enough. In fact, real education, the kind that shapes your life, must teach you more than just facts and skills. It must also teach you how to live. He let the words sink in before continuing. Have you ever wondered why so many people who are highly successful still struggle with anxiety, stress, or even a sense of emptiness? Why do some of the brightest minds still grapple with personal dissatisfaction? The students were now fully engaged, some leaning forward in their seats, their curiosity piqued. Professor Lee stopped pacing and faced the class. The truth is, universities often focus only on developing your intellect. But that's just one part of you. What about your emotional intelligence? Your compassion? Your ability to cope with setbacks and challenges? How do we cultivate resilience and inner peace? He could see the light of realization dawning in their eyes, and that's when he knew it was time to dive deeper. This semester, we won't just focus on what you know, we'll focus on how you think, how you deal with stress, and how you can develop the compassion and mindfulness necessary to thrive in today's world. A hand shot up from the middle of the room. Professor, are you saying we need to learn emotional skills just like we learn academic ones? Professor Lee grinned. Exactly. There's a growing movement, led by incredible leaders like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to integrate mindfulness and compassion into education. Not just as side notes, but as core components of learning. This isn't just about feeling good, it's about transforming how we learn, how we approach our work, and how we live our lives. The students sat up a little straighter, the atmosphere in the room now charged with possibility. Professor Lee looked around the room, eyes twinkling. So, are you ready to explore what education could truly mean, not just for your mind, but for your heart? With that, he turned to the projector and began the lesson on mindfulness and compassion in education, setting the stage for a semester unlike any other the students had ever experienced. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, contributions to education through mindfulness and compassion programs integrated into schools and universities worldwide. His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, is one of the most revered spiritual leaders in the world. Beyond his role as the spiritual head of the Tibetan people, he is also a global advocate for peace, compassion, mindfulness, and human values. His teachings transcend religious boundaries and focus on universal human ethics. One of the profound areas where the Dalai Lama's influence has become visible is in the field of education, particularly through the integration of mindfulness and compassion programs into schools and universities globally. His vision for education is not merely to provide intellectual growth but to nurture the emotional, spiritual, and ethical dimensions of young people, preparing them to be compassionate and responsible global citizens. Over the decades, His Holiness has engaged in numerous dialogues with educators, neuroscientists, psychologists, and philosophers to develop and promote educational programs that foster not only cognitive skills but also emotional intelligence and inner peace. The programs that promote mindfulness, the practice of being present and fully engaged with what you're doing at the moment, and compassion, the wish to relieve suffering in oneself and others, have now been incorporated into curricula across diverse educational institutions. From primary schools to universities, especially in Western countries, though also in some Asian nations, in this comprehensive analysis, we will explore the Dalai Lama's contributions to education, his philosophy behind these initiatives, the institutions that have adopted his teachings, the scientific backing for the effectiveness of these programs, and the impact they have had on students, educators, and the broader society, too. The Dalai Lama's philosophy of education, a holistic approach. At the heart of the Dalai Lama's educational philosophy is the belief that true education extends beyond the development of intellect and includes moral and emotional dimensions. He often emphasizes that modern education systems overly prioritize intellectual development at the expense of emotional and ethical maturity. According to His Holiness, an education system that focuses solely on the brain while neglecting the heart fails to produce compassionate, ethical, and well-rounded human beings. In his many writings and speeches, the Dalai Lama advocates for what he calls secular ethics, a set of universal moral values that transcend religious or cultural boundaries. These values include kindness, empathy, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, and non-violence. He believes that teaching these values through mindfulness and compassion programs can help create more peaceful and harmonious societies. The Dalai Lama envisions an education system where the cultivation of the mind and heart is equally important. By integrating mindfulness and compassion into the classroom, students are encouraged to not only excel academically but also to become emotionally resilient, empathetic, and responsible individuals. His Holiness has stated that true happiness and peace come not from external success or material wealth but from developing inner strength and wisdom, which can be achieved through mindfulness and compassion practices. 3. Mindfulness and compassion programs. The key elements. The programs advocated by the Dalai Lama primarily focus on two fundamental principles: mindfulness and compassion. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It is a practice of becoming aware of thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations while cultivating a non-reactive awareness. In the context of education, mindfulness helps students develop focus, concentration, and emotional regulation. Instead of being swept away by distractions, anxiety, or stress, students learn to observe their thoughts and feelings calmly, which enhances their ability to learn and engage in a healthy way. Mindfulness also encourages students to remain present, reducing mental clutter and helping them to be more engaged with their studies. Studies have shown that practicing mindfulness can improve academic performance, reduce test anxiety, and foster greater emotional stability. It has also been linked to improvements in memory, attention span, and problem-solving abilities, making it a crucial tool for young learners. Compassion, as the Dalai Lama defines it, is the wish to relieve the suffering of others. It goes beyond empathy, which is the ability to feel what another person is going through. Compassion actively seeks to help alleviate that suffering. In educational settings, fostering compassion helps students develop social and emotional skills, such as empathy, cooperation, and conflict resolution. Compassion is particularly important in creating a more inclusive and supportive classroom environment. When students practice compassion, they are more likely to engage in pro-social behaviors, such as helping peers, showing understanding toward others' difficulties, and resolving conflicts peacefully. These qualities help build a school culture that prioritizes kindness, reduces bullying, and promotes mutual respect among students. By combining mindfulness and compassion, educational programs can offer students tools to not only improve their cognitive abilities but also to become better human beings who care about the well-being of others. 4. Institutions promoting Dalai Lama's vision, programs and collaborations. Stanford University Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education, CARE. One of the most prominent collaborations involving the Dalai Lama is with Stanford University, particularly through its Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education, CARE. Founded with the direct support and inspiration of His Holiness, CARE conducts scientific research into the neural and psychological effects of compassion training and mindfulness. It also offers training programs to teach these skills to a broad audience, including educators, healthcare professionals, and students. At the heart of CARE's mission is the idea that compassion and altruism are fundamental to human flourishing. By understanding the science behind these behaviors, CARE aims to promote compassion-based educational programs that can help mitigate stress, enhance well-being, and promote better mental health in schools and other institutions. Research from the center has demonstrated that practicing compassion can lead to greater emotional resilience, stronger social connections, and an overall increase in personal well-being. The Mind and Life Institute. The Dalai Lama has also played a significant role in the establishment and growth of the Mind and Life Institute, an organization that bridges the gap between science and contemplative traditions. Since its founding in 1987, the Institute has organized dialogues and research programs that focus on the intersection of neuroscience, mindfulness, and education. Through collaborations with scientists, educators, and spiritual leaders, the Mind and Life Institute has developed numerous mindfulness-based educational programs. These programs aim to integrate contemplative practices, such as meditation and compassion training, into the classroom. The goal is to help students improve their emotional regulation, develop empathy, and cultivate a sense of purpose in life. One of the key initiatives of the Mind and Life Institute is the Social, Emotional, and Ethical learning program. This is a K-12 education program designed to foster the social, emotional, and ethical development of students. Developed with the input of His Holiness, learning teaches mindfulness and compassion as fundamental components of education. It equips students with the skills to navigate complex social and emotional challenges, while also encouraging ethical decision-making and compassionate action. Emory University's partnership with the Dalai Lama. Emory University, located in Atlanta, Georgia, has a long-standing partnership with the Dalai Lama, who holds a position as a Presidential Distinguished Professor at the university. Together, they have developed a comprehensive curriculum that integrates mindfulness and compassion into various academic programs. The Emory-Tibet Partnership, established in 1998, is dedicated to exploring the relationship between science and spirituality, and it has been instrumental in promoting contemplative education. One of the key educational projects from this partnership is the Tibetan Science, Mind, and Culture program, which introduces Tibetan monks and scholars to modern scientific principles while simultaneously teaching mindfulness and compassion to Western students. This cross-cultural exchange allows for a deeper understanding of both modern science and traditional contemplative practices, leading to a more holistic approach to education. 5. Impact on students and teachers. Benefits of mindfulness and compassion in education. The impact of mindfulness and compassion programs on students, teachers, and educational environments has been profound. Several key benefits have been observed, supported by empirical research and first-hand accounts from educators. Cognitive and emotional development. Mindfulness practices have been shown to enhance cognitive functions such as attention, memory, and executive functioning. When students are taught to be mindful, they are better able to concentrate on their studies, filter out distractions, and retain information. In addition to academic improvements, mindfulness helps students manage their emotions more effectively. This is particularly important for adolescents, who often struggle with emotional regulation due to the developmental changes they experience. Social and emotional learning, SEL. Mindfulness and compassion are critical components of social and emotional learning, SEL, an educational framework that focuses on developing self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. SEL programs that incorporate mindfulness and compassion practices help students navigate interpersonal relationships with more understanding and empathy. These skills are essential for reducing bullying, enhancing cooperation among peers, and building a more inclusive school culture. Teachers who practice mindfulness and compassion also benefit significantly. Studies have shown that mindfulness can reduce teacher burnout, improve classroom management, and enhance job satisfaction. When teachers are mindful and compassionate, they are better equipped to handle the emotional demands of the profession, which, in turn, positively impacts their students' learning environment. See, mental health and well-being. One of the most critical benefits of mindfulness and compassion programs is their positive effect on mental health. In a world where students face increasing levels of stress, anxiety, and depression, these programs offer practical tools for managing emotional distress. Research has shown that mindfulness can significantly reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, while also improving overall mental well-being. Compassion training fosters a sense of connection and community, reducing feelings of loneliness and isolation that many young people experience. The benefits of these programs are not limited to students. Teachers and administrators also report experiencing greater well-being when mindfulness and compassion practices are integrated into their daily routines. This has led to more harmonious school environments where both students and educators thrive. 6. Global adoption of mindfulness and compassion in schools. The global reach of mindfulness and compassion programs inspired by the Dalai Lama is vast. Schools and universities around the world have incorporated these practices into their curricula. Recognizing the importance of fostering emotional and ethical development alongside academic achievement, United States and Europe. In the United States, mindfulness and compassion programs have gained widespread popularity in educational settings, from elementary schools to universities. Organizations such as the Mindful Schools Project and the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin-Madison have developed curricula and training programs for teachers and students alike. These programs teach mindfulness as a tool for improving focus, reducing stress, and promoting emotional well-being. European countries, particularly in the United Kingdom and the Netherlands, have also embraced mindfulness and compassion-based education. In the UK, the Mindfulness in Schools Project, MISP, offers a structured curriculum for teaching mindfulness to students aged 7 to 18. The program has been successfully implemented in hundreds of schools across the country, with reports of improved student behavior, enhanced academic performance, and a reduction in anxiety and stress. India and Asia. In India, the Dalai Lama's teachings on compassion and mindfulness have resonated deeply. Several Indian schools have adopted mindfulness programs inspired by Tibetan Buddhist practices, focusing on developing emotional intelligence and ethical behavior in students. Bhutan, a small Himalayan kingdom that prioritizes gross national happiness over gross domestic product, has integrated mindfulness into its national education system, emphasizing the importance of inner well-being as a foundation for academic success. Japan and South Korea have also explored the integration of mindfulness into their highly competitive educational systems. While the academic pressure in these countries is immense, mindfulness programs offer a counterbalance, helping students cope with stress and develop resilience in the face of challenges. 7. Challenges and criticisms. While the integration of mindfulness and compassion programs in education has been widely celebrated, it is not without its challenges and criticisms. Secularization of Buddhist practices. One of the main concerns raised by critics is the secularization of mindfulness and compassion practices, which have their roots in Buddhism. Some argue that removing these practices from their spiritual and ethical context diminishes their effectiveness and transformative potential. They caution that when mindfulness is taught solely as a tool for enhancing academic performance or reducing stress, it risks becoming a shallow, commodified practice that overlooks its deeper ethical dimensions. The Dalai Lama himself has addressed this concern, emphasizing that while mindfulness and compassion have Buddhist origins, their benefits are universal and can be practiced by people of all faiths, or none. He advocates for a secular approach to these teachings that focuses on their ethical and psychological benefits, rather than their religious aspects. B. Implementation challenges. Another challenge lies in the practical implementation of mindfulness and compassion programs in schools. Many educators feel unprepared to teach these practices, as they require a certain level of personal experience and training. Additionally, some school systems are resistant to incorporating non-traditional curricula, particularly in environments where standardized testing and academic performance are prioritized. To address these challenges, many organizations offer professional development programs for teachers, helping them integrate mindfulness and compassion into their classrooms in a way that aligns with academic goals. 8. Conclusion: a new paradigm for education. The Dalai Lama's contributions to education through mindfulness and compassion programs represent a revolutionary shift in how we understand and approach learning. By emphasizing the importance of emotional, ethical, and spiritual development alongside academic achievement, His Holiness has offered a holistic vision for education that nurtures not only the mind but also the heart. As more schools and universities around the world adopt mindfulness and compassion programs, we are witnessing the emergence of a new paradigm in education, one that prioritizes the well-being of students, teachers, and communities. While challenges remain, the growing body of research supporting the benefits of these programs suggests that the Dalai Lama's vision for compassionate, mindful education will continue to flourish in the years to come, shaping a generation of young people who are not only knowledgeable but also kind, resilient, and deeply connected to the world around them. As the semester progressed, Professor Lee's students found themselves not only challenged by their coursework but also by the profound lessons on mindfulness and compassion that had woven their way into the fabric of each class. Week after week, the students learned to engage not just their intellects, but their hearts, reflecting deeply on how these practices could influence their lives. It was now the final lecture of the course, and the atmosphere in the room was electric, though tinged with the kind of bittersweet emotion that accompanies the end of something meaningful. Professor Lee stood at the front, the same place where he had begun the semester, with a question that had sparked an unexpected journey. He looked out at the room, his face filled with quiet pride. "It's been a long semester, hasn't it?" he asked, a warm smile spreading across his face. "So much has happened since I first asked you what you thought was the most important thing you'd learn here." The students nodded, some smiling, others looking reflective. "And now," he continued, "I'm going to ask you one last question." He paused, the silence drawing everyone in. "How will you use what you've learned about mindfulness, compassion, and emotional intelligence once you leave this classroom? How will you carry these lessons into your life?" A hand shot up almost immediately. "I think it's not just about using these skills in our careers, but in how we interact with everyone, whether it's at work, with family, or even strangers." Professor Lee nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. These lessons aren't confined to the workplace or the classroom. They're about shaping how you see the world, how you respond to challenges, and how you treat others." Another student, one who had been more quiet throughout the semester, raised their hand. "Professor, I didn't realize how much I needed these practices. Learning how to manage stress through mindfulness has changed the way I approach my studies. I'm less anxious and more focused, and I've started meditating regularly." Professor Lee smiled gently. "I'm so glad to hear that. You see, the beauty of mindfulness and compassion is that they're tools you can use throughout your entire life. They don't just help you succeed academically, they help you thrive as human beings." The students were fully engaged now, some even jotting down notes, as if these final words would somehow encapsulate all the wisdom they had absorbed over the semester. "I want you all to remember something," Professor Lee continued. "In a world that often feels chaotic and demanding, the ability to center yourself, to act with kindness and empathy, and to be mindful of your own emotions is invaluable. It's easy to get lost in the pursuit of success or external achievements, but true strength comes from within, from the balance between mind and heart." A gentle murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Professor Lee closed his notebook and looked around the hall, his eyes filled with warmth. This journey doesn't end here. What you've learned about compassion and mindfulness isn't just for this class, it's for your entire life. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, lost, or unsure, remember that you have the tools to find your way back to peace and clarity. You have the power to make a difference, not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. So, I leave you with one final piece of advice: be kind. Be mindful. And don't forget to take care of your heart, as well as your mind. That's how you'll truly make the most of everything you've learned here. The room was silent for a moment, the kind of silence that signals deep understanding and emotion. Then, slowly, applause began to fill the air, not the usual hurried clapping at the end of a lecture, but a genuine expression of gratitude and respect. As the students gathered their things and began to leave, several came up to Professor Lee, thanking him personally, not just for the academic knowledge, but for the life-changing lessons on mindfulness and compassion. One student, lingering behind, looked at Professor Lee and said, "I'll never forget what you've taught us. It's made me rethink everything, not just about my studies, but about how I want to live." Professor Lee smiled, his eyes shining. That's the real lesson, isn't it? Good luck out there. And remember, education isn't just about what you know, it's about who you become. And with that, the last student left the room, carrying with them not just the weight of their textbooks, but the deeper, more lasting lessons of the heart.